Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Listen all you mother...
It's TalkBack Weekend with Chris X.
What we need right now is a clear message to the people of this country. This message must be read in every newspaper, heard on every radio, seen on every television. This message must resound throughout the entire interlink.
And now your host,
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Chris X.
No, without a doubt this evening. Good evening and welcome to TalkBack Weekend. I am Chris X. Of course, broadcasting live from Studio X as we do every Saturday night. We come bearing that gift beyond price that's almost free, ladies and gentlemen, the spirit of talk radio. All right, tonight I've got a very special guest. Last Saturday night we interviewed Congressman Steve Stockman, and we talked to him about the special guest he brought to the State of the Union. Now, that guest was Uncle Ted, the Motor City Madman, and we're honored and blessed to have Ted Nugent joining us this evening on TalkBack Weekend. Ted, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Greetings, Chris X.
Well, I'm glad to have you on the program. Been wanting to get you on for a while, but I know you've been a very busy man. You've been very much in demand here over the last few weeks.
Well, I'm weird, you know. In a world of sheep, I actually believe in experiment and self-government, and I think guitar players qualify as we the people, so I'm engaged. You know, I spend an awful lot of time with the heroes of the U.S. military, Chris, and we salute way too many flag-draped coffins, and we remember those who have sacrificed everything, and share campfires with the heroes of the U.S. military who have sacrificed their arms and their legs and their eyeballs and their skin. So how dare any American not do their job, their duty, their moral obligation to at least utilize the freedoms and the liberties and the self-evident truth-based, rights in the United States of America is provided at such great sacrifice. So yeah, I am engaged, and I play the soundtrack for freedom and defiance, so I'm constantly doing homework, you know what I mean?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. It is for their service and sacrifice which enables us to be able to freely talk about it on a nationwide basis, on a nationwide talk show. In fact, let's get rolling. I appreciate what you've done for the troops because, boy, they've done a lot for us.
I cannot emphasize enough. Everybody listening right now, if you can squeeze $5 or $50 or $10 out of your budget, donate it to a military charity. There's so many great charities right here in Texas. There's the OperationFinallyHome.org. OperationFinallyHome.org. We provide no cost, absolute free custom homes to the military heroes that need special service and special design and special accoutrements in their home building. So everybody should dig deep because I really do spend a lot of time with these guys and gals, and my God, do they deserve everything we can possibly give them. They deserve it more than anybody.
Boy, I couldn't agree with you more. FinallyHome.org. I encourage people to go and make sure you give generously if you can. This leads right into what I wanted to start out with the program, talking to you tonight. We had Congressman Stockman on last week in the program, and you were his special guest at the State of the Union. First and foremost, I want to get, what did you think about what the president had to say at the State of the Union, Ted?
Well, I've been doing interviews nonstop since about 63 because I stand out in the world of rock and roll because I actually believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and I've been clean and sober for 64 years. So my take on the State of the Union address is reviewed and absorbed with a clear mind and a clear conscience and a desire to absorb all the information possible. And because I've been clean and sober for 64 years, my radar works pretty good. So nothing confuses me really except the abject dishonesty of this president, the absolute scam that this, Chicago gangster acorn community disorganizer in chief is perpetuating upon the American public. And if people think those words are too harsh, you better get your head out of your ass and get a life, because every word out of this president's mouth is a scam. It's a lie. This guy is the Saul Alinsky stepchild of deceit and fraudulent misdirection and smoke and mirrors. Everything this president has said in his public career, he's either done just the opposite or he's done nothing at all, except in the instance where he said his policies will necessarily cause the cost of energy to skyrocket, and then the numbnuts of this country still voted this idiot in. So when you got a president whose number one law enforcement officer, Attorney General Eric Holder, is actually guilty of running guns, violating his oath to the Constitution, and running guns to Mexican drug gangs, are you kidding me? So, you know, the flowery, scripted, you know, fraud and deceit and scam of the president's State of the Union address is just so obvious unless you're drunk on, you know, on the cult of personality. He's done just the opposite, because he says really neat stuff. He's going to save all the children, right? He's not going to tax the middle class, right? He's going to bring about world peace and end world hunger and stop global warming. And here's the most beautiful thing. Here's a guy that just squallors about shared sacrifice, and then he and his family spend $20 million going back and forth to Hawaii for their vacation. And of course now he's spending another $10 million on his Florida vacation. Where the hell is the shared sacrifice as tens of millions of Americans are without work, and where there's just abject cruelty going on in this country? So I'll tell you what the president's State of the Union address was. It was a lie. The whole thing was a lie.
Yeah, you know, Mr. Nugent, he said a lot of things in that State of the Union, and he does this regularly, and he likes to give his great speeches with his teleprompter. But as you sat there, and obviously you're firing on all cylinders here. You've been doing this clean and sober for 64 years, which explains why you're so much quicker and maybe a little bit more snap than the average person, I guess, who listens to the president. But people being drunk is the only thing that I can think of which allowed this guy to get reelected. And he goes back. What did he do for the last 4 years? What do you think he did for us for the last 4 years? And what do we have to look forward for the next 4?
I think President Barack Hussein Obama was born a communist, was raised by communists, was educated by communists. He hung out with communists. Oh, and while I'm identifying the communist lifestyle of President Barack Obama, let's identify the other, probably the most cruel and, I believe, evil, soulless scam that he's perpetrated upon us so far, and that is visiting the memorial wall, the Vietnam Memorial Wall. The president goes and visits the Vietnam Memorial Wall, claiming to pay homage and show honor and respect for 58,000 dead American warriors who fought communism. And then he goes and hires communists. Valerie Jarrett publicly celebrates that she's a member of the Communist Party and that Mao Zedong is her choice of inspiration, and Valerie Jarrett is his communications czar. Chris, are you kidding me? This wouldn't qualify as Planet of the Apes Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Soylent Green zombie war movie. This is just the most putrid abuse of power and deception in the history of the United States of America, maybe the world. So anybody that's buying into this guy, Barack Obama's dream exists. He wants America to be a gun-free zone, and so far, except for Eric Holder running guns to Mexico, the citizens of Mexico have to live in a gun-free zone. They're not allowed to own guns, and it's the murder hell zone of the world, except in Brazil where no one's allowed to own guns, and that's got a lot of murders, in South Africa where you're limited to 5 guns in your family, and that's a murder zone. And of course, Barack Obama's hometown of Chicago, you're not allowed to own a gun. You have to have a state-issued firearms owner's identification card in Illinois to buy BBs. And Chicago is the murder capital, and this president wants America to be more like Chicago. You just gotta be kidding me. So it's diabolical, it's dastardly. And as long as there's enough we the people with our heads solidly up their asses, we're going to continue to buy this lie. It's a scam. And this guy's the master of it. And you got enough dumb Americans, enough, information-challenged Americans to buy the cute and attractive and flowery and dreamy, fantasy-driven agenda of this president based on the Saul Alinsky rules for radicals.
Yeah, it really is astonishing, and you're right. He surrounded himself with these communists, such as Van Jones, who had to step down. And you already really tied right into what I want to talk about in the following segment coming up, because we have to take a break here. Before we do, I want to hit on this. When I was talking to Congressman Stockman last week, one of the things he told me is that Hillary Clinton's office literally came over and tried to stop him from bringing you to the State of the Union. When we come back, I want you to touch on that, and we'll talk about the Second Amendment. All right, stick around. We're talking with Ted Nugent, the Motor City Madman, here on TalkBack Weekend. I'm Chris X. As we get things lined up, if you just can't wait until the next segment, go to tednugent.com. Everything Nuge is there, and I encourage you to go check it out while we do the program. We're blessed. We've got Ted Nugent for the entire first hour of tonight's program. All right, you are listening to TalkBack Weekend. I am Chris X. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to TalkBack Weekend. I'm Chris X, along with my special guest for the first hour tonight. We're talking with the Motor City Madman. Ted Nugent is here, and he's espousing the beliefs which can only be fired upon cylinders that have been clean and sober for 64 years. That's why the guy's so quick. Hell, I've only been clean and sober for 45 years, so he's got 19 years on me. So you think I'm sharp?
Respect your elders, Chris, so salute to you, sir.
Absolutely. I have to defer to my elder here with his wisdom and his judgment. Ted, thanks again for being here. I appreciate you sticking around for the entire first hour.
My pleasure, and congratulations with your show. I'm proud to be on it with you, Chris.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you blessing us with your presence. We teased before the last segment. We talked about, Mr. Barry Sortero and the things that he's done with the country. We talked about you attending the State of the Union last week. I talked with Congressman Steve Stockman last week, and he actually told me that Hillary Clinton sent her office people over to try to convince Congressman Stockman to not bring you to the State of the Union. Why are they so threatened by you, Ted?
Well, let's identify the line drawn in the sand, shall we? I know which side we stand on, Chris, with the good Congressman Steve Stockman and his staff, and the great Ted Cruz, and the country's greatest Attorney General, Greg Abbott, and the country's greatest Governor, Rick Perry, and so many real constitutionally driven patriots that reside here in the great Republic of Texas and all around the country. You know, John Thune from South Dakota, and Congressman Isis from California, and Hunter from California. There's so many great, real patriots and statesmen out there, so we salute all of them, and they stand proudly on my side. But let's examine the other side, shall we? Here we have the cop killer in Los Angeles. Derner, I think his name was. He's killing cops. He's killing innocent people. He's terrorizing his fellow Americans. And he had a long manifesto, and he listed a bunch of his heroes' names. Every one of the heroes of the cop killer, of the murderer in California, all of his heroes hate me. That's why Hillary Clinton and Eric Holder and Barack Obama and Dick Durbin and Sheila Jackson Lee and all the maniac leftist, America-hating, freedom-hating, NRA-hating, I believe Texas-hating Americans out there, like Hillary Clinton, they scramble in abject fear because I bring such a believable, historically supported, evidence-supported, self-evident truth and logic statement to the debate that they can't stand me. And I would like to think, as I glow with unlimited confidence that the greatest Americans stand on my side, I'm even more proud that the enemies of America hate me. All All you have to do is watch the leftist media. After the State of the Union, I did a number of interviews, and I had to hand some of them their guts like I did Pierce Morgan, because they got nothing. They live fantasy. They live lies. They live socialism and communism. They hate the very fiber of rugged individualism and self-sufficiency that makes America the last best place in the world. And every time they dare debate me, I hand them their guts, because they got nothing and I got everything. So it is only to be expected that a Hillary Clinton, who not only refused to provide adequate security for American citizens in the most dangerous places of the world, but even on the anniversary of 9/11, after multiple requests for reasonable security on the anniversary of 9/11, Hillary Clinton refused adequate security, and then had the arrogance, the soullessness to scold those that ask her why. So this is a great moment of celebration that I caused much anguish, and I clearly upset the Hillary Clintons of the world, because when you stand for the truth, you piss off the liars.
Oh, man, you couldn't have said it any better. And you're right. You mentioned a lot of things just then. You talked about this madman Dorner that was killing cops and innocent people, and you talked about his manifesto. I'll tell you right now, there's only one manifesto anyone needs to read, and it's Ted White and Blue, the Nugent Manifesto, which was a New York Times bestseller. I want people to check that out. You talked about Hillary Clinton. We've talked about Obama, and we've talked about, Eric Holder. You mentioned the Fast and the Furious program, where hundreds of Mexicans have been killed, including a couple of American citizens. You mentioned this Benghazi. I find it astonishing that the very people who allowed Mexican citizens to be killed with firearms, if you will, that allowed our Americans to die in Benghazi, are the very same people advocating that we should, take back some of that Second Amendment. Ted, what do you have to say to those who believe you don't have the right to arm yourself?
Well, it's almost like claiming I don't have the right to breathe, or I don't have the right to pursue my happiness, or I don't have any self-evident truth-based rights given to me as an individual by God. That this conversation and that this heated argument exists in 2013 is an indictment to the scourge of apathy, the scourge of political correctness, and the scourge of we the people bending over for so long to allow the manifestation of a cultural deprivation that is perfected by a Barack Obama and an Eric Holder and a Hillary Clinton. And how's this, Chris? When it comes to the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court, 5 of the 9, thank God, decided in Heller and Washington, both instances, that the Second Amendment is an individual right to keep and bear arms, that we can keep, which means they're mine, you can't have them, and bear, which means I've got some on me now and they're loaded. There's Americans that need an interpretation and that need that clarified. There are Americans that claim ambiguity in the Second Amendment. This is a depth of soullessness that I never thought could exist in a country that won over the Japs and Nazis in World War II, and that stands based on the Constitution, and our elected officials have to swear an oath to the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So, being that as it may, 4 of the Supreme Court justices, stop and think of this, including the racist Sotomayor, who believes that a certain ethnicity and gender is superior in decision-making over other ethnicities and genders. I mean, sit and contemplate that for a minute. Sotomayor actually claimed that a Hispanic woman is better equipped to make meaningful judgments over white males, and she still was qualified to be a Supreme Court justice. The words supreme and justice for a racist? I have to catch my breath here for a minute. Well, 4 of our Supreme Court justices signed their names, Chris, to a statement that not only do they not believe the Second Amendment guarantees any Americans the right to keep and bear arms, they actually use the word self-defense. 4 of the Supreme Court justices of the United States of America signed their names to a document stating they don't believe Americans have a fundamental right to self-defense, Chris. Let me make it perfectly clear. Human beings all human beings have the most basic, instinctual, God-given right to self-defense. Period.
You know what? That's a segment ender right there. All right, we're talking with Ted Nugent, the Motor City Madman. He's been kind enough to join us for the entire first hour of the program. We do need to take a very short break. We'll be right back with more of TalkBack Weekend. I want you to stick around as we do tonight's program. Realize if you want to find out all things Nuge, go to tednugent.com. You need to hit his website, find out his appearances. We're going to get to that here a little later in the program as well. Don't go away. This is TalkBack Weekend. I'm Chris X. We'll be right back.
I still believe in the American dream. I still believe you can hear me scream. You're still alive, still on fire. I defy, it ain't no lie.
I still believe as well. Welcome back to TalkBack Weekend. I am Chris X, along with our special guest for the first hour of tonight's program, Ted Nugent. By the way, that's one of his latest songs. You can get it at tednugent.com, I still believe. Ted, that's a pretty rockin' tune. You're still kicking out songs, 64 years into this whole experiment?
I'm telling you, I got the greatest band on planet Earth, Chris. Mick Brown on drums, just an absolute animal. Greg Smith on bass guitar, like a Motown funk brother in heat. And Derek St. Holmes on vocals and guitars. I'm the luckiest guitar player in the world. We're heading out this year. I think this will be like my 6,500th concert coming up in the summer of 2013, and I guarantee it's going to be the best concert tour of my life. My band is so good, it's insane. The guys have so much talent, so much attitude and spirit and passion for the music. They live this stuff, so it's going to be a tour to reckon with, I guarantee you that.
I'll tell you what, I encourage people to see. I saw you back in the 80s at least a few times with the damn Yankees, and I've seen you, needless to say, multiple times. I've literally been listening to you for 40 years on the radio, and I know you've sold over 30 million records. My brother yesterday, when I told him I was going to be talking with you this morning, my brother goes, "Man, you've been singing his music since you were 5 years old."
Which is why you're so spirited and uppity, and I salute you, sir. You have good taste.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It also explains why, well, heck, you're one of the best guitar players that's ever picked up the instrument, and like I said, if anyone who doesn't believe that just needs to listen to your music.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you joining us this evening and providing all of the music for everybody, for millions and millions of your fans. Hey, we were talking about the Second Amendment, and this is interesting. For those who are lucky enough to see, you've been on Piers Morgan's a couple times. In fact, you came over here to my neck of the woods near Katy, Texas, and went on Piers Morgan's show, and I really enjoyed something, the way you handled him. He steamrolled his other guests, and he steamrolls a lot of his guests, but he can't steamroll you, especially when you nailed him and told him he was full of crap.
Well, it's so easy. I mean, I think God loves me more than he loves you, Chris, because he sends me these really easy numbnuts to decapitate. I mean, to argue with me about guns or hunting or the American dream or God-given individual rights, you have to have sun-baked turd for a brain or come from England. So, yeah, it was really too easy. I didn't feel any guilt whatsoever, because anybody that dares to try to tell me he decides I will be unarmed and helpless, he needs his ass cranked. And Piers Morgan, really, if you and I sat down, and all my friends in the NRA sat down and designed a pawn, a counterpunch to the Second Amendment, we'd come up with a Piers Morgan, because he is so full of crap. He is so clueless about the genuine instinct of self-defense and how forcing citizens into unarmed helplessness will always be destructive and it will cause more innocent slaughter. So I had to hand him his guts. But I do that all the time. When I do interviews, we cannot get the arguers to call in and debate me because they know I'll just slaughter them. And I do, upward of 1,000 interviews a year, mostly talk radio and various media. And the truth is a beautiful thing, and I've lived it my whole life. I've been a gun guy my whole life. There's never been a year in my life I haven't been around guns, shooting guns. Since I was a teenager, I've carried guns. I've been a cop since 1982. I conduct federal raids with the heroes of law enforcement across this country. I've been in the belly of the beast. Anybody try to? An English guy is going to tell me about guns? Are you kidding me? So it was too easy, and I appreciate you enjoying that intellectual ballet I did on his skull.
I would call it an intellectual discourse, but there was only one side of intellect coming out of that one.
Yes. Well, I'm still scraping limey, ignorant debris out of the cleats of my dancing boots because he just kind of laid himself out for me because he has nothing.
Well, it's funny because as I watch this, you nailed him, and he really did. Every time you brought up, I noticed every time you threw his statistics against him, he ran in another direction. He did this regular, but you're the only one I've heard other than myself, and I know someone else has done this. I just haven't heard it. You were the only one that alluded to he is the very reason that we have the Second Amendment in his country.
Yeah, absolutely. If you try to go king on us, we're going to go Concord Bridge on you. I mean, the king's henchmen tried to come over and take away the Americans' guns, and we met them at Concord Bridge and blew their brains out. And that's what we'll do if anybody tries to come and take our guns. We have a God-given individual right to protect ourselves, and any kind of subhuman devil that would want to tamper or infringe upon that will end up just like the redcoats.
Well, and like I said, it's interesting because you mentioned you've been carrying guns pretty much your entire life since you were a teenager, and I just got one question because they're trying to disarm people like yourself and myself who actually want to protect ourselves. How many people have you murdered with firearms in your lifetime, Ted?
And I think I stated that on numerous interviews that I actually wrote Wango Tango. So if anybody's unstable and dangerous, it would probably be me. But I literally have unlimited firepower, virtually unlimited firepower throughout my life. Just take that term as an overview. And I've never broken any laws. I've never hurt anyone. I've never had an accident. The Nugent family is trained to handle wood chippers and blowtorches and Buicks and any other tool that optimizes quality of life, including firepower, including shotguns and rifles and handguns and real military assault weapons, not semi-automatic sporting rifles, real machine guns. And I conduct myself with a sense of awareness, with a sense of conscientious behavior. I don't tread on others because I don't want them to tread on me. I'm the ultimate neighbor you would ever want. I will help plow your driveway or cut your lawn or save you from a flood or shoot a rabid dog. I will help put out your fires. I'm what America is. I'm what all my buddies, how they conduct themselves and how they're an asset to their family and neighborhood in this country and their fellow man. And it all starts with the right to keep and bear arms, and that's what we do. And nobody better attempt to play King George with us. That's all I'm saying. Yeah,
well, it's funny because you're the enemy number one to the liberals and the Democrats in this country, but then again, you're the first guy they call when the wolf is at the door. So
yeah, and I've seen a lot of that. If you go to TedNugent.com, we have a talk back there. There's a whole bunch of wonderful Americans. In fact, I believe the best of the best heroes of military and law enforcement and ranchers and farmers and teachers and welders and electricians and CEOs and the world's greatest janitors, just every human being from every imaginable walk of life, and boy, they're smart. So I would encourage everybody listening right now to Chris X and I to come to TedNugent.com and get on our TalkBack. Our TalkBack is the epitome of the We the People campfire, strategizing how to direct our elected officials and make sure our employees do the job of their employers. So the TedNugent.com TalkBack is the epicenter of this new upgrade in America, making sure that we demand accountability from our elected officials.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The people need to remember in this country that those people work for us. It's not the other way around. Hey, you mentioned the NRA, the Second Amendment. A little birdie had told me that the NRA's National Convention is coming up on May 5th in Houston, in my neck of the woods as well, and you're going to be there. In fact, you're going to give the Freedom is Not Free presentation?
Yes, in fact, I would encourage everyone. I know most of your listeners are probably such freedom fighters. They're members of the NRA, but let's give away memberships. Let's give away NRA memberships to everybody we know at work and school and church and at the hunting camp and the bowling alley and the barbecue joint. Let's make sure everybody we know, our families and friends, are members of the NRA and join us in Houston that first few days of May. I think May 3, 4, and 5. I'll be there all day May 5th in Houston at the NRA annual membership meetings. And it's the greatest family event celebrating freedom you'll ever attend. And I know we're going to set attendance records this year, but mark your calendar. Houston NRA Annual, May 5th with Uncle Ted.
Oh, yeah, you got to get out to this. And to keep updated on things, make sure you do hit that website, tednugent.com. I've got a quick question before we go to the next break, Ted. Are you better with a gun, a bow, or a guitar? That's a tough question.
You know, I've been trained by the world's greatest. I've jammed with everybody from Eddie Van Halen and Billy Gibbons and Jimi Hendrix and B.B. King and Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley. I've trained with the world's greatest marksmen and snipers from the U.S. Navy SEALs and the Green Berets and the Special Ops and the Army Rangers and SWAT all across this country. And I got to bow hunt with Fred Bear, communicated with Howard Hill, and I know all the greatest bow hunters in the world, so I can hold my own with all three, and I just love all three. My quality of life is based on the entire aim small, miss small mantra.
It's interesting because here in Texas, which I know you migrated to, I guess, as soon as you could, we have the greatest things in the world. We have jobs, we have employment, we have girls, we have guns, and we have guitars. There really isn't much else that we need, is there?
I got to tell you, the whole world sucks. America still sucks less, but most of the time Texas don't suck at all. I mean, this really is the ultimate last best place. And again, a huge freedom salute to Governor Rick Perry and Attorney General Greg Abbott and Congressman Steve Stockman and Ron Paul and Ted Cruz and Bill Flores and Cornyn and so many wonderful representatives of the Constitution and we the people. I couldn't be more proud to be a Texan for the last 10 years.
Well, I'm right there with you. All right, you're listening to TalkBack Weekend. I'm Chris X. We've been honored and joined by Ted Nugent. He's joining us for one more segment remaining, so don't go away. Keep listening. I'm Chris X. This is TalkBack Weekend, and we'll come back and we'll tell you where Ted's going to be and some of the things he's working on here for the American people. Don't go away. Welcome back to TalkBack Weekend. I'm Chris X. You've reached the final segment of the program, but fret not. It's the final segment of the first hour. The second hour is coming right back at you. We've been honored to have Ted Nugent, the Motor City Madman, online with us for the first hour. We'll get you on the program in the second hour, so you just stick around. Don't go away. We'll open up the phones in hour number 2. But I'm very blessed to have had Ted Nugent with us for the entire hour. Ted, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening and joining us here on the program.
My pleasure, Chris, and a salute to you, man. You're doing God's work. Your self-evident truth and logic is our self-evident truth and logic, so carry on, my friend.
Well, it's because of guys like you that have the ability to be outspoken, to be sharp, and to present it articulately, to realize that this country is not a bunch of sheeple, and thank God for talk radio and these things that are showing us the side that the rest of the media refuses to show us. They've got their agenda, and, well, they don't like guys like us, Ted.
Well, and that's a perfect example of why we tower over the sheep. And if I may, just to make sure no one misunderstands what we're doing here, I'm going to very painfully, this is very painful, but I'm willing to sacrifice and endure pain for you, Chris, on your radio get down here. But I would like to sing, very painfully, not just the French national anthem, but the American national anthem that bent over allowing gun-running attorney generals, Secretary of States that refuse to provide security for American citizens, secretaries of Treasury that are tax cheats, and a president who is the commie scammer in chief from Acorn, Chicago hell. Here is their national anthem. How pathetic is the curse of political correctness, which represents a cult of denial that has allowed America to bend over to the point where we have this corrupt, power-abusing government ripping us off every day of our lives. It's just vile.
It's very sad, and you mentioned that political correctness. Before we talk about some of the things you've got coming up, I did want to say this. You were recently visited by the Secret Service. Are they trying to silence the Motor City Madman? Is that what they're doing?
No, that's another perfect example, and another a real glowing feather, a neon feather in my cap, my coonskin cap. The cute thing about my coonskin cap is that it's still alive. I actually wear a live coon as a cap. The reason that's the best feather in my cap ever is because it's another indicator that when I stand up and use the First Amendment, that there are mongrels on the left. There are Democrat liberal mongrels who lie through their teeth, and because the Secret Service, 99% of them are the most honorable, warriors of integrity, the consummate professional law enforcement heroes. But because Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein and Eric Holder and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Sheila Jackson Lee lied through their teeth about misquoting me, that the Secret Service, by duty, they're duty-bound to investigate when someone claims you threaten the president's life. So the heroes of the Secret Service are my buddies, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way and like I had special treatment, but I train with the Secret Service. I conduct federal raids with the Secret Service. I share ammo with the Secret Service. When Bush was president, the Secret Service trained with me on my ranch. So I have a great relationship with the heroes of law enforcement because I'm a law-abiding guy. But they still had to investigate the lies of the liberal Democrats. They did. They shook my hand, conducted themselves as the consummate professionals, and they concluded in their research that I made no threat against anyone, anywhere, anytime. And that was over a year ago, yet still the left media claims that I threatened the president's life to this day. And of course, Chris, we all know that if you threaten the president's life, you get a seat at the State of the Union address. That's how that works. So my critics are just subhuman, brain-dead, soulless punks, each and every one of them.
This explains why, well, first of all, that they don't like you very much because you do speak your mind in a free country where we're allowed to. We do have this thing called the First Amendment. We also have this thing called the Second Amendment, and I think that's what's going to allow you to continue to speak your mind, which is why they want to take it away from us so badly, I guess.
Yeah, but make sure everyone knows out there, Chris, right here on your radio, Get Down, that the heroes of law enforcement and the military, if they are given a violating a constitutionally criminal order to take away Americans' guns, that the majority of the heroes of law enforcement and military will not side with that illegal order. They'll side with we the people. But we've got to continue putting pressure and communicate with our elected officials to make sure that we don't get any more sodomite racists on the Supreme Court, because Barack Obama wants to load up the Supreme Court so that he can trounce on the Constitution and he can end this experiment in self-government and be the tyrant that he believes he was born to be. So the apathy that we talked about a moment ago is the ultimate curse, far worse than a gun-running attorney general and a secretary of state that refuses to provide security for Americans in dangerous places in the world. Far worse than those crimes are the crime of apathy, that American citizens just don't give a damn. And the people who don't give a damn have a president, they have an attorney general, they have a secretary of state. So those of us that know the truth, those of us that know you're supposed to be productive asset to your neighbors in this experiment in self-government, we better turn up the heat and communicate more intensely with our elected officials every chance we get, which should be a minimum of weekly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like I said, I don't know what they taught him in socialism school, or Marxism school, but he should probably come to Texas and look how things are being done down here, because we're doing a whole lot better in Texas than the rest of the country. Speaking of doing better, we want to talk about this before, because we're literally almost out of time. Ted, you've got your TV show, Ted Nugent, Spirit of the Wild, on the Outdoor Channel. You've been doing fantastic with this. Also, you've been working with this Camp for Kids, which has been doing great things for children.
Yeah, for 26 years now, upon the death of my hero Fred Bear, which the song is a tribute to, I started a children's camp to teach them about real conservation, to teach them to not just say no to drugs, but to beat up hippies who offer them drugs, and to stand strong for doing the right thing and respect law and order, and strive to be the best they can be. It's called Ted Nugent Camp for Kids. It's a 501c3 non-profit charity, and my volunteers are doing God's work every year. We've graduated almost 15,000 kids through hunter safety and the DARE program, the anti-drug program. So I want to thank everybody for helping that out. We also have a military charity called Freedom's Angels, where we help the wounded heroes of the military and their families get a little taste of the quality of life that they deserve. So I appreciate that. We try to promote it on our Spirit of the Wild show, but I want to thank everybody for making Ted Nugent Spirit of the Wild the #1 show on Outdoor Channel for the last 24 years. We really appreciate that support, too.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time and talking with us tonight, Ted. That's all of our time on TalkBack Weekend. Once again, go to tednugent.com if you want more information. I'm Chris X. We'll be right back for the next hour, and we'll open up the phones for you. Don't go away.